The movie starts off with a father and daughter going through the woods. Judging by their clothing, it's been a while after the collapse. Especially by the shoes the man is wearing, they appear to be larger than his than his normal shoe size. Later, we see them sitting down at a camp. Initially, you can't tell if the camp is being used by some other people or was being used. How long it's been abandoned? How many people did that spot accommodate? And that is something we discussed last week involving tracking the types of animals, the direction the animal went, if they were going to a water source or their den. Tracking is also valuable in this specific situation where you need to assess whether to keep moving or if you can stay at an abandoned site. My initial thoughts when I saw this site was the teddy bear and the skull and bones is that this place has been abandoned for a while. Later, we see them having a fire started, and there's a few things we should note about this. In certain situations like this, there are different types of fires to make for different purposes. So, for example, a Dakota fire is one that is made that keeps the fire hidden and the smoke low. It's primarily used for cooking, which it appears they weren't doing. So, um, as you're looking at different skills, you've probably seen or might want to look up Dakota fire hole. Dakota, like the state, and you'll see a couple of videos regarding that, and it shows you how to make it. It's pretty simple. You just make two holes, one for your fire and the other one for airflow, and you can boil and cook, but the purpose of it is to not be a snake charm for people to notice in the distance. Okay. So later we see the girl pick up a dirty teddy bear, and in the next scene, the bear has some of the dirt wiped away, and the girl is touching the flower on its chest. And her father says, or at least we can assume this is her father. He says it's a flower. Again, leading us to believe a long time has passed since her father has to tell her that's a flower. And with that, we can assume a few assumptions that this collapse has been environmental. The effects have been environmental as well as to all the I guess vegetation and life have died out. For him to describe for him to tell her what that was on the teddy bear's chest. She didn't say anything to the tune of "I know that," and given her reaction and her age, it appears that she's a teenager who was very young after the collapse started and lived a good part of her life on the move, scavenging and fighting danger. We later see the daughter notice a figure moving in the distance, and her father looks in that direction and quickly acts. The father sends her to hide behind a tree and gives his daughter a knife. They both look at each other as if they've been in this situation before. The girl doesn't argue, she doesn't resist, she stays put and she keeps the knife. He goes back to the camp and grabs his axe and slowly approaches the woman who already has her hands up. She says, "I don't want any trouble, I'm just passing through." She says this as she slowly approaches the man. Now, here we see a few problems. If she's just passing through, then keep walking, which he should have said to her. But then he says, but then she says, excuse me, "I thought it would be safer to approach you than to avoid you." Which begs the question, I thought you were just passing through. And if that's your intention, you would have kept moving until you saw me. Okay? But you are saying all of this, and your actions are telling me the opposite as you keep moving closer to me. Okay? He then makes the mistake that quite a few people will make during this time is he engages in the conversation. He engages the conversation. He says, "I wouldn't want to mistake you for a deer." They keep talking, and she says, "I can trade you. I can trade you something to drink for food." And he says, "I have nothing to trade." Which barter and trading will be the way of transacting during this time. Gold will be worthless. The dollar will be dead. Bitcoin dead. Instagram likes dead. Chasing the bag dead. Dumbass pranks to go viral dead. The activism to celebrity pipeline dead. The question of what is valuable is, do you have something I want or need that will help me make it another day? Okay. Then she talks her way into having a seat at his camp. Now, during this interaction, there are so many red flags going off. As she sits down, the woman, the man looks at his daughter in the distance and slightly shakes his head no, signaling that it is not safe to come out. She breaks out a bottle of whiskey and offers him a free drink, which we know nothing in this world is free, especially during this time, and especially if you aren't part of the one third. He snatches the bottle and quickly downs the bottle, which tells us he has a drinking problem to be this thirsty for a drink, which the red flags and warning signs are flashing, but he doesn't see it. So this is something I do want to note, and like those who are struggling with addictions now and do not actively work to get rid of those addictions, whatever they may be, it's almost in. I would like to say, I'm just just my guess. It would be almost impossible to to shed those addictions in a time like this, especially when the opportunity presents itself for you to indulge in that addiction. So to say, "Oh, I have a drinking problem now, and oh, I'll take care of that during Jacob's trouble because there will be no alcohol, and I'll be fine." No, no. Um, if you have a drinking problem now and you don't handle that, you're going to have a drinking problem during this time. And like this man, you're going to ignore a lot of red flags and flashing red lights. So as he finishes the bottle, we see the girl stands behind the tree, and she notices a man approaching from behind, and she slowly moves to get a better view and remain out of sight. Now, this is a smart girl. The father and the woman continue talking, and the woman brings up the subject of the deer. Why would you want to know about it if he said earlier in the conversation he saw it 6 months ago? As the conversation progresses, he starts to wake up to the fact that something's wrong. He says, "What do you eat?" And she smiles with an ugly grin, showing, her really messed up teeth, which, again, during this time, toothbrushes and toothpaste will be scarce. So, one thing that you could do to make a makeshift toothbrush is take a branch of a pine tree, and if you have a knife or a knife, you can kind of cut off or shave off some of the bark to relieve. The outer bark to expose the inner bark, and then you could take your molars and kind of bite down on the end to create bristles. And that is a older way to that is a makeshift toothbrush. There's countless videos on that, so just look up how to make a toothbrush out of pine tree. Um, so he says, "What do you eat?" And she smiles with an ugly grin, and she says, "We eat whatever we can find." Which, given the fact that when the father and daughter sat down at the camp, there were human bones around, and we can assume that there are some people who became cannibals. Many Gentiles see this per the scriptures. This is Isaiah 49 and 26. "And I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood. As with sweet wine, and all flesh shall know that I am the Lord, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. We also see that again in 2nd Ezra chapter 15, verse 58. They that be in the mountains shall die of hunger, and eat their own flesh, and drink their own blood, for very hunger of bread and thirst of water. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever studied starvation, but it is um, if someone dies of hunger, it's not a instant death. It's not something that you haven't eaten in 4 days or 3 days and you die. It's not those who say they're going to fast and 12 hours later they think they're going to die. No, it takes about over 40 days of not eating anything for your body to start breaking down. So I think that's why in scriptures we see the people who fasted. I think the maximum we see is 40 days. At that point, your body really starts to break down. After that point, if you're not fasting, you're just starving. There's a difference, between fasting and starving yourself. So, but people who die of hunger, it typically, they're typically dead at, between day 45 and day 60. Here in America, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be longer because your body fat, we're the most obese nation. So for someone to die of hunger, and we got shows like My 600-Pound Life, it's probably going to be longer than 45 days. But in any event, it's going to be a very painful and, slow death. So um, in this situation, we can assume that people have turned into cannibals. Since she smiles and says, we, okay, I just see you, but we eat whatever we can find. And you saw the campsite bones. Now, she sees the teddy bear and she gets a serious look on her face as she asks, have you seen a kid around here? Which probably leads us to believe, since she asked that question and the man hid his kid, kids are the primary target for cannibalism. And so, that is something that, we can safe to assume. At which point, her partner in the distance is aiming his bow and arrow and would have killed the father if the daughter would not have jumped on top of the man and threw off his aim. The arrow hits the man's leg, which the woman jumps on top of the father, trying to kill him, and the daughter is trying to kill the woman's partner. The daughter stabs the man in the neck, and it's safe to assume that he bleeds out and he's dead. And we can assume that because when when her father was fighting the woman and she stabbed the man in the neck, she just looks at him. So probably anyone who's I guess want to make sure the man's dead would have took a couple more stabs. But again, giving her reaction when her father hit her behind the tree, and the fact that she was looking, she was playing with the knife sometimes, but she was waiting on her father's instruction to say it was safe to come out. But when she saw the woman's partner come behind the man, she started to move in place, which leads us to believe this is not their first rodeo, and she understood the assignment. Okay. The daughter stabs the man in the neck, and it's safe to assume that he bleeds out. But the woman overpowers the father and stabs him, who then takes the knife and, excuse me, the woman overpowers the father and stabs him. He then takes out the knife and stabs the woman in the calf. She sees her father in danger and she runs over to him after the woman kicks the father in the stomach. The woman picks up the father's axe and slays him as he looks at his daughter and yells, "Run!" And the scene fades to black. We can assume the girl fought the woman, and we can flip a coin and debate all day who won. But there's a few things to note about the daughter. This would be my only knock, giving the very limited um, time we had with these people. The daughter's hair needs to be put up. Long hair will become a liability in almost every movie in this genre. The woman or the heroine has long hair and it never gets in the way. When the woman's running or when she's fighting, is very unrealistic. Long hair, as we have seen in many street fights, becomes the first thing that gets grabbed. But let's for a moment, that would be my only knock. But let's take for a moment. Let's take this daughter in Ember and contrast her with Jim, the teenager from the first movie we covered in Aftermath. Both are about the same age, and it appears that one grew up in the apocalypse and the other was thrown into it. Jim from Aftermath, who was thrown into the fray wanting to hold on to Babylon and did not want to let her go, was a teenager in the middle of the apocalypse in the woods with a Darth Vader mask, pretending he was having a sword fight. He desperately and selfishly wanted anything that brought him comfort during the apocalypse, to the point where it cost his older brother his life. Now, for those with children, especially preteens and teens, I hope you started getting their hearts and minds ready. If you haven't, or if you have and it didn't go so well, pray and fast on the best approach to talk to them about what's coming. I know some parents who are very upfront, raw, and direct about the days ahead. Others aren't even talking about the subject, and I can't comment on either situation, giving the limited facts I have about their situation. Me personally, I prefer the blunt and upfront approach. Then again, I don't have any children. Because teens with hormones and emotions, who don't even start to wean themselves from Babylon will have a very hard time adjusting, just like most adults. I mean, everyone will who's not even attempting to keep the law, statutes, and commandments and have the faith. Everyone's going to have a hard time adjusting, but especially those, who um, and as a situation like Jim, the older brother said, "Okay, this is the life now. This is what we're in. This is what it takes to live from day to day. We got to set up traps. We got to set up bails. We got to move from place to place." Now, again, there's nothing to suggest in aftermath that the brothers were, in the scriptures, but I mean, he was, living out Second Ezra 16 and 40. O my people, hear my word, make you ready to thy battle, and in those evils, even be as pilgrims upon the earth. Okay? So, you take Jim, who was thrown into it, who did not want to let Babylon go, versus someone who was raised in it, and, she followed her dad's commands to the T, but, she didn't fight and argue. No, dad, I want to stay with you. No, why can't we stay? She understood what the world was, or what the world is. Okay, so in conclusion, what do we have? We have a father and daughter surviving the worst of Jacob's trouble, as prophesied. We see a father that did his best to protect his daughter until he let his guard down and ignored the many red flags that came his way. A father's whose weakness was exposed when offered a drink of whiskey, a weakness that eventually cost him his life and possibly the life of his daughter. We see a daughter who didn't even know what a flower was being raised in the judgment of the Most High, where Gentiles are eating each other to make it another day. A daughter who understood the world she was living in and was willing to do what was necessary to protect her father and herself. We see a killer who knew she caught a prey once the father engaged in her conversations and didn't kill her. A killer who knew her food was human flesh and who knew her food was human flesh was all but secured as she calmly approached the father with her nice words and talked herself all the way back to his camp. A killer who operates like a wolf, who keeps her prey engaged as the prey is slowly surrounded by the other wolves. Each person gives us, the hopeful elect, something to learn about the coming days ahead, as we will be forced to engage and evade people from all walks of life, people that will revert to the animals they are as we enter Jacob's trouble. And with that, I yield. And Ben or Mike, something you want to add or comment? Your thoughts on this film? What you think? Any precepts you want to bring out?
The only thing I noticed that I wanted to point out was like you said, like he took a big gulp. So it wasn't like he even just took a sip, and like she definitely coaxed him out of like paying attention to the situation. He was supposed to actually notice the man sneaking up on his daughter. Like he was supposed to be alert and all of that. I don't even know why he sat down when he allowed the woman to sit down. He should have been in like a standing position just to be in a defensive position in case there was an attack. But those were just a couple of the things that I noticed with that scene.
Con. Yeah, that one. I've watched it a couple of times because I, like when they got to the camp or to that site where the bones were and the teddy bear. Um, I was wondering. I was thinking, was that the woman's and the man's camp who was just coming back, but they noticed the father because they never saw the daughter. But um, I can tell, or I can, I believe that from the angle that the lady was walking, she saw the man at least because the man and the daughter were next to each other. So as she was walking, she saw the man and was walking, and then the man or the daughter saw daughter saw the woman first, and then the father hid the daughter. So I mean, they were all. I mean, those two were. I mean, at least the father because the woman asked, "Have you seen a kid?" Or she said a kid. She didn't see a girl or anything like that. So they didn't know. And then the man with the bow and arrow, he didn't see the daughter sneak up on him. So, um, like with that, that's why I said that's why I mentioned the thing about the fire was that that fire could have been a giveaway. Like you see it off in the distance. I mean, something that just catches your eye. But when he approached her with her hands up and she said, "I'm just passing through," he should have just said, "Okay, keep walking." And then that was it. But um, given how there was no reaction, kind of like what we saw with Aftermath, there was no talking. There was just I see you, I'm shooting. Except for the older brother with the woman in the beginning of Aftermath, um, engaging with that conversation, especially as she's walking towards you. So if she's really afraid for her life, why is she walking towards you? The scene that they were in, or the setting. I mean, they were in the woods. It was quiet. It wasn't loud. So the distance that they were talking was a comfortable distance for her to have her conversation. But she kept slowly walking towards the man with her hands up. Just keeping engaging in the conversation. So yeah, that right there was a major red flag, and um, which again cost him his life. So, and as she engaged, I mean, he could have gave her a warning. As again, kind of contrasting this with Aftermath, when the older brother told the woman to stop. She was running towards the barn, and he told her to stop, and she kept running, and then he shot and killed her. Like the father in this one gave her no warning. I mean, well, he gave her no warning, um, but he just kept engaging in the conversation as she was walking closer. So yeah, there was a lot of red flags that he should have picked up on, but he didn't. Ben, is something you wanted to add?
Well, I think y'all pretty much covered it. I thought, just in watching it, a lot of the position that he took with his daughter, like basically, you're basically like a sitting duck where he was. You don't give it enough time for someone to walk up on you. You know, it was certain, I believe, certain things he could have did to like probably keep them out of sight a little better. And that's just, when you are moving, especially with a little one, um you want to try to take you want to try to take paths that uh is not only gonna not draw a lot of attention, but it gives you maneuverability that should someone come up on you, you're not surprised. And that's kind of like how that's how he was to a certain extent. you know uh, he was kind of, even though he got like a little, it was a little distance, but she kind of, like I said, she had to jump on him versus him having to jump on them, like kind of like the way he was moving. And that fire, that they made, of course, it's going to draw a lot of attention. So you want to try to be out of the line. I thought he was gonna, honestly, I thought he was gonna die a lot earlier than he did. But I think he put his daughter, him and himself, in his daughter and himself in a bad position, and even a worse position than sitting down and taking of the wine. It kind of thinks back to him when he took that drink. I thought back to the book of Eli, the movie. Like, why would you drink anything that someone that comes up on you, is going to give you, And he didn't resist that at all, and now, of course, that was his downfall. Um, I also think about the protection factor, um of that's like, I want to say, I guess, an ideal situation that most people would think is being with a man, but being with an untrained man is, you know kind of worse than being, by yourself. I mean, because the mistakes that he did, actually, his daughter did more to saving him than him saving her, to a certain extent. So those are some of the things that I've seen. You just have to be, more wise in your decision making, and prepare for scenarios such as that. You know, because she had to actually, he put herself in a position where she actually had to come out and save him, and then it put, her at a disadvantage. So that's really what I see.
Con. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Ben brought something up, and I had like a question kind of based off of it. He referenced the fire, and I did agree that that gave away their position. Now, let's say that since this is Jacob's trouble, that's the reason I asked this. Say you are in a position where you do have to set up like camp, kind of in a sense, and would it be smart to have the fire kind of off in a distance from where you're gonna be, so it doesn't give away your position, or what's your thoughts on that?
Um, man, it's really hard. I don't know if you were I don't know if you were in yet, but if you're cooking, I would make a Dakota fire hole. So a Dakota fire hole is just a hole that you dig. You dig two holes, kind of like a tunnel with two holes. So one is for the fire and one is for the airflow. You don't see the fire, and the smoke is very low. So probably by the time the smoke gets out of the second hole, I mean, hardly anyone can notice. So, but that's only for cooking. Like, it's not going to keep you warm, but that's what they use when they don't want to be seen and you have to cook something. So, you saw in Aftermath, like that world they were living in. No, there were no lights, like nothing to give away the position. So that time, the brothers slept outside in the cold. It wasn't like, okay, now the gang that was hunting them down, they had torches, but at the same time, it's multiple of them. It was like 4 or 5 of them, and they all had guns. So that's a different scenario. But um, you know, the purpose of a fire, of course, is to stay warm. So uh, the best thing, the priority should be is a shelter. Okay, so that'll help with the warmth problem, and of course you could start a fire inside. I mean, wouldn't recommend it now because depending on what people use in their house, and carbon monoxide poison and all that. Um,
Pull to refresh.
uh, Pull to refresh, and there we have it. We have bins. That's a Dakota fire hole. So you have one of the holes for the fire where you put your pot above on top of the flame, on top of the fire, and you have the airflow in the second one. So it's very simple to make. You know, very easy to start, but it's probably for cooking. So to answer your question, Mike, shelter would be the priority, especially given the time of the year. If it's winter, definitely shelter. And again, uh, there's a lot of factors that play into that. In terms of shelter. Um, it, how many people are with you? Of course, first and foremost, the Most High is with us, and His angels are with us. So, But again, we still have to, be wise per the scriptures. So, um, shelter should be the first priority. But to keep warm, that's gonna be one of the things where dressing in layers or accumulating clothes in layers is gonna be um, more beneficial than starting a fire. Like I'm gonna start this huge fire to keep warm. Like really, like whether you have nothing or not, it's just gonna draw attention. So again, it's just just I guess a word of wisdom. So for me personally, I would go for shelter first, and then if I had to, you know, uh, it would depend on how cold it is and things like that. So, but no, fire would not be my first priority because especially when they started the fire, I was like, what are they cooking? Like, he gave her a piece
Con,
of, some cracker or something, but I was like, wait, they're not cooking anything, and I was like, well, that's not a good idea. But so, hopefully that answered your question.
no, Con,
Con,
that does. Because I was actually asking specifically to cooking, so that the Dakota fire pit, that's perfect. So thank you.
con, and also like I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, it didn't really look like necessarily they, it could have been where they needed to keep warm, but I mean, they had a little more of daylight, so I guess if they was taking a break. They really didn't need to start the fire as per se. Didn't see nothing that they really had killed or had on them to cook, so the fire was, kind of just, more or less, a giveaway of their position. But I would, like Leo said, it would also depend on how many you have in your party. So, like, if you are stopping and you are, to cook, you want people to take lookout. So have people at a distance away, at least that they can warn ahead of time. You can always set up like different type of markers. I don't. It's according to how uh handy people are to set off certain type of alerts that someone may be able to set off. That's things that you can learn as well. But them being in a party of two, it was kind of they was at a disadvantage to a certain so they had to. I think that more or less they could have just limited the the fire and things like that being them too, and just been more alert as to where their position was. um, I think Sister Steen has something. You want to ask questions?
Kind. Yeah. Shalom. So I was just wanted to, because I know you said, as far as the, like trying to make a fire and that draws attention and everything, and wearing layers of clothes, etc. But what do you feel about like the emergency blankets that they have? Like, is that beneficial?
Yes, that's a good alternative. I mean, to starting a fire in that situation because it insulates your body heat. So, you see some people. I don't know if you've seen. I mean, like you'll see some people like if you see like bushcraft videos or people on Instagram, they have like they're building a fort next to their fire. It's like like this little like stacks of logs, like not big or
Kind.
medium size. What they're doing with that, it's called people they call it a few things, but the main thing is a wind blocker. So and it blocks the wind, and the fire from the heat from the fire is going to the that little setup they have, and it kind of bounces back. So yeah, I have a couple of emergency blankets in my bag, and that would be a good alternative because it insulates the body heat. So wouldn't be a bad idea.
All right. Kind. So
Behind the bar. One thing I wanted to add about that man's addiction. So you saw the scene when they first sat down. He took out his knife and he was kind of scraping his the skin of his like the hair off his skin, which I thought he was just bored. But then he started cutting his hair, and I was like, or trying to cut his hair. I was like, what the hell is he doing? I was like, I thought initially that this guy was kind of off it a little bit, and but when he had the drink, I said, oh, okay. So And he had, the way he drunk it was as if he had had a drink in a while. So with that, that little, I guess not nervous tick, but that that tell was like, okay, putting two and two together is like, okay, you didn't wean yourself off this alcohol, and as you and your daughter were going from place to place, um, you found alcohol. You had a drink. So that right there is, it's just something that a lot of people are gonna have to get rid of. A lot of people won't, because most won't make it, and even less are actively preparing. But those addictions are gonna bite hard. I remember when that hurricane hit Puerto Rico, and even when the hyperinflation hit Venezuela, the most traded, when we talk about barter and trade, the most bartered and traded items, right below food, was cigarettes and alcohol, and condoms. That was the most thing that was people bartered and traded for. So especially in Puerto Rico, when they had that really bad hurricane during the Trump administration, and power was out for weeks. Um, People would report like, oh yeah, if you had a pack of cigarettes, you can get people to do anything you wanted. I mean, they would ride you around to other parts of the city, just for a pack of cigarettes. Um, with that, you're also going to have. We're going to cover this in another movie. This is more of a mockumentary, but it's really good. You're going to have, gangs are definitely going to start controlling different aspects of commodities. So in Venezuela, there was like this sugar truck that was, I think from Colombia or Brazil, was coming into Venezuela, and it got robbed, and some of the gangs were controlling controlled sugar. And then in Puerto Rico, someone said, "Oh yeah, if you wanted gas, the gangs took over the gas trucks, and you had to go like outside the city to go to some place that somebody was just filling up, people's gas tanks. That everyone had, the people around had guns and everything, and you know." And one of the biggest gangs were what was FEMA, controlling the water, which there's some horror stories about that. So those people who are, hey, I'll do anything if you got a pack of cigarettes, or hey, you got a drink. And the thing is, she offered him a free drink. Like, I mean, I'm almost certain she knew when, she said, oh, I just want to rest my legs for a bit. Well, I think she knew before that. As she was approaching and he kept talking, she knew she had him. So, and she knew that her friend was, going around the back to trap him. But that right there, when she said a free drink, and he snatched the bottle. I mean, the bag of human flesh was all but secured. So again, there's one thing like, oh, I really love Chick-fil-A, and like, oh, okay, like after Jacob's trouble happens, there's everything is shut down, whatever, gone. Okay, like I can't get Chick-fil-A, I'm moving on. But I mean, those really hard, like addictions, like the addictions, like hopefully no one's addicted to Chick-fil-A, where someone with messed up teeth and one eye will offer you a six piece, and you put your life in danger for that. I mean, hopefully no one has it that bad, but we definitely see that when it comes to drugs and alcohol, and you know stuff like that. So yes, it's that was the main thing with me. Like, dude, don't engage in conversation, especially if you have a daughter. If you're just you, if it's just you, I could see like, oh, okay, maybe he was too trusting. Still, me not. No, like, ma'am, keep walking. One step closer, I'm swinging this axe, and I wouldn't say that. She came one step, I'm swinging the axe. So, but again, judging by the camp judging by the camp, that when you saw bones and then you hid your daughter, like, there's cannibalism at that point, folks. I mean, like, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm swinging that axe. So it is a very, it was a very, it was a good. I mean, overall, I liked it. I mean, it was, the director, got to the point. He told an aspect of the story. The quotes he had at the beginning and the end really didn't go with that. Sometimes they do that. They just, I really like this quote, so I'm gonna put it in this movie, and I'm like, it doesn't go with that. But okay. Um, so overall, I thought it was pretty good. Like it definitely gave us some things to consider considering that time. So, if anybody else wants to come up and ask any questions or give your perspective, what you thought of the movie, definitely feel free. So, Christina, you have something else?
I had a question. I've been having this question for quite a while. Okay, whether we know whether, because I get it. We shouldn't trust anybody most times, but like, hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I forgot how to paint this picture. The question, but whether we know if they're in truth or not, like, how do we go about with like trusting who, like, if it's a brother or a sister, whether they're in this walk or not, like, do we still trust, or do we still like stand firm in not trusting anybody? Like, I don't know if I'm asking this correctly. If
No,
you know.
no,
Okay.
you are. Um, and King Ben and Mike, if you guys want to bring out any precepts, but I mean, during this time, you have to you. This is why the Drake of Trouble class is about the spirit aspect is so important because we kind of know, like, if I'm, dealing with Mike, I first met Mike, I was like, oh, he's cool, he's bringing up the word and this and that. And, as I gotten to know him, Spirit just confirms everything. Like, he's a really good brother. Um, now, again, if someone, I mean, if someone you can't trust now, like, like times are good now and they're doing shady stuff now, like the odds of you being able to trust them when the amenities, luxuries, and everything is cut off is is gone, or the threat of it is gone. A very credible threat, and we saw that with the Twilight Zone. I mean, when everything was fine, oh yeah, Bob Sheridan, the doctor, oh yeah, he's great, this and that, he's got a bomb shelter, ha ha ha. But then when you hear the news reports and you get that external confirmation, it really reveals who people really are. So, this whole how will I know? You will know. It's not going to take much. Like that whole, oh, I was courting this guy for 6 months, and then he really just showed himself. But why did it take so long? It took so long because we have the luxuries and amenities of of Babylon. Take that away, and he's not gonna spend 6 months trying to get no, no, no. People are gonna show you their true selves in a much quicker time because
Con.
again, their stomachs are growling, they have the addiction. You have something they think you have something they want or need, and that whole oh, let me just talk, I'm gonna say smooth words and all this stuff. We saw in this situation, I mean, he could have easily just ran up on her and swung the axe and didn't say anything, and then I'm sure her friend would have came out and shot the arrow, or yelled or something, or stayed hidden and he just waited. But she was fairly confident the second he engaged in the conversation, which tells us the time that time right there, there's not a whole lot of talking going on. So you could take these four people from Ember and put them in Aftermath, and it would be it would flow perfectly because in Aftermath no one's talking. Like they just kicked down the door, shot up the place, and took food.
Con.
So there's no conversation. Like there's, oh, how can I, no, like we're no, that time is dead. It will be dead. Um, that answers your question.
Okay. Okay. I got it. So
Come on. Anyone else? Anyone has any questions would like to add to the discussion?
I had a precept for her question.
Sure, go ahead. You had a preset, bring it up.
Okay. No, just Ecclesiasticus 12:10. Never trust thine enemy, for it's like for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So if your biblical nationality is in Psalms 83, um, during that time I would have just swung the axe. So that's just me being honest. So yeah. Hopefully that answers the question.
Con, it does. It does. I mean, it's the thing is, I think that makes it what makes it a little like what
Uh-huh.
sister was saying, and I agree to it too because me as a person, it's like oh ma'am, keep walking, but like you said, like no, just swing the axe because putting it back through the lens of the Bible. That's one thing. Like we're watching these movies or we watch TV shows, and it's like oh that's crazy. What if? But in order for us to get the answers we need, we have to look through that situation through the lens of the Bible. Like I'm not going to a camp with a bunch of Edomites. Like Rick Grunt. Like hell no. Like no, I'm not. Like
Con.
I'm
Con,
not. It's
I I
so.
get.
I'll
Mhm.
go ahead.
So I get that part, but I'm just looking at it at a point where it's like, okay, we're in this situation, and I'm not talking about just Edomite. I'm talking about like our people, whether they're in the truth or they're not in the truth. Like, how do we determine that whether we to trust them or not? Because even if you feel like okay, someone that you come across a brother and sister that is in the truth and they're going hard, in before Jacob's trouble, and you come across them and maybe they don't have that same faith. Like, do we still go like head on hard and not trusting anybody like that comes across us? Or
Absolutely.
okay, so
Yeah.
that's wild.
And it's gonna be that time because you're going to be traveling in a party, right? And you come across someone that looks to be our people. Okay, you're going to have one. Prayfully, you're going to be in a position that you have someone there as men. Let's just say that, um, and you're not going to have to deal with them. The men are going to be the ones that judge those situations. You don't want to be in a position where you're trying to figure out is this man that you coming across or this woman you coming across should join your party. It'll be men with wisdom that around you to protect you in that time. That's where you want to be at that moment. You don't want to be making those decisions. So should you be by yourself at that time,
Mm-hmm.
you want to make smart decisions of not, staying away from people like that. Try to get to a place where there are, those of your understanding. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to pick up people on the way that you are not familiar with, that you don't know if they have your understanding or not. Your mission, if you are by yourself, is to get to a location where you can get to the people that are of your understanding.
Salakia. All right, so that's what I'm saying. Like, how do well, I guess that comes with wisdom and everything, because that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that whether they was in the truth or not, and then they're coming around you, but during Jacob's trouble, they don't have that, that fate. And that and they're just like luring you in. Like, should I just like have that mindset where anybody that comes near me, I'm just blasting them off?
You're not
Put it
blasting
that
them. It's not like you're gonna just murder people, right? You see them
right.
and you
That's
shoot
what
them.
like I'm trying to
So
get a
you
picture of
what
it.
you have to understand is you have to have an awareness of oneself. You have to
Okay.
have an awareness of a reality about you, that you are no
Hmm.
longer in a position of comfortability. A lot of the situations that are happening right now, especially with people who are mentally ill, that is, they are tamed right now because society has tamed them. But a
Right.
lot of this tanking behavior is out the window once society crumbles. There's no 911 to call you to keep people in check. There's
Right.
no banks, there's no landlords, none of that. It is just survive and or survival of the fittest, right? I want to
Right.
read a quote. This is from one of my favorite movies, The Dark Knight, right? This is the hardest quote in the entire movie, right? This is when the Joker's talking to Batman. I know, laugh, but this is hard. Joker says, "You don't talk like one of them. You're not. even if you like to be. To them, you're just a freak like me. They need you right now, but when they don't, they'll cast you out like a leper. You see, their morals, their code, it's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They are only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve. That's what Joker said to Batman. Like when he was playing his games, that's what he said to him. Like these people are behaving themselves because society allows them to behave themselves. It gives them the need and the situational sustenance. The cotton is high and the fish are jumping, right? You living high on the hog right now. But so now you're gonna think like, do I need to kill people who come along my path? Not necessarily. What you need to do is not keep your eyes off of them and just get away from them until you know people that you know that are in the truth and have your best interests and want to build and want to create a society where they all work to protect each other and you have a night watch and the men are protecting the women and in that type of system you got to prior proper planning prevents poor performance. So you got to be able to prepare yourself for that and then find people who are of like mind to be willing to prepare themselves as well. So that now, when it's time to be separated, when you're living in your own house, in your own apartment, worrying about your own bills, and society collapses, you can find those like minded people and travel there. And then you can create an area of protection and trusting each other. But random people, random family, friends, though, you can't trust these people. These people will hurt you even when it's good times. So what makes you think they're not going to hurt you when it's bad times?
Okay. Okay. So water.
And the movie was like, look, I don't know what Leonardo was thinking, but like the theme is get away from white women.
Yeah, that's the common thing of all of these movies. I don't know. Leo just got something against white women. I don't know what it is, but
Man, no, that's the spirit, man. I'm literally like, oh, it's short. I can create a good review about it. It's got some good tidbits, and I just put it in. And then the last 3 or 4 movies, like I'm like, there's kind of a common theme here, but no, I mean, and that's the thing, like, sister, like the spirit is going to be working during this time. So, I mean, when you read the precepts about the Medes coming against Babylon, they're coming against the Babylonians, which we know are Americans. So, and we know those who are joined unto them. So, um, like in terms of that, I mean, I've kind of stopped, thinking about who do I trust, who do I trust. It's kind of like you're throwing a bunch of chips in the air and you're trying to like control where they fall. Not you specifically. I'm just saying like people who who've gone through this. Like this, the Lord, he's the perfect mastermind. The system is going to correct. He's going to, his system will correct itself. So and again, like this is, we don't know the exact catalyst. We just know to get ready. So there's precepts about the Medes and Persians. We know there's famine, whether the Persians caused the famine when they come over here and start blowing stuff up, whatever, we don't know, but whatever the situation is, we know it's going to be dire, and we know Jeremiah 30 that Jacob will be saved out of it. So we'll be good, and I take comfort in that from a spiritual standpoint. I take comfort in all the precepts that talk about um, the righteous being taken care of, or the hopeful elect, or the elect being taken care of. So I take comfort in those scriptures, and that's where your faith comes in. So, like I said, those who are not, secure in, in the faith, those who are not keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, um, they'll get caught up in the flood, as in the days of Noah. And those who don't, we read that in five Amos 5 last week. They're gonna run from a lion and go into a house and get bit by a serpent. So um, you know it's going to correct itself. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think I'm very confident that the elect will be gathered to the elect. So even if that's a mighty brother I've been congregating with, and then Jacob trouble happens and he just falls off the wagon and goes left. The Most High is going to put someone else in your place. So there's plenty of plan Bs that we see throughout the Bible. So it is something to think about, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. I wouldn't worry at all. We don't have nothing to worry about. That's the thing. We do what the Most High says. He's faithful and just. To do what His Word says. So Psalms 37 is a good one. Psalms 91. We covered those, but we can definitely bring those out. But the people in these precepts aren't worried about the wicked. The wicked are going to get it. And those who join unto them are going to get it, and those who do not come out of Babylon are going to get it. So I take comfort in that. Like thinking about the day to day of Jacob's trouble. I mean, I did a lot in the beginning when I first realized that the rapture before the tribulation is not real. But the more I meditate on these precepts, the less I think about it. I mean, I probably first started 12 hours out of my day I'll be thinking about it and planning, strategizing, and blah blah blah. But you know, getting more into the precepts, which is definitely you know um, 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 more important because I mean, we see like when I talk about all these videos on YouTube and everything, they're a bunch of heathens, making these videos about preparedness and food storage and guns and ammo. Like we know they're gonna get it, and we know whatever they stored up will be for the righteous. So even they have an understanding of Babylon is going to fall, but they're not looking through it through the lens of the Bible because they will be bringing out precepts and talking about they're going to cleave to the house of Jacob, but they're not. So even they understand that the system will collapse. But us looking through the lens of the Bible, we have very little to worry about. So if you are with someone during this time and they're not in the truth, according to the Most High standards, they're going to expose themselves, and the Most High is going to deal with them. And of course, we just have to do our parts to do what is necessary now and in the days ahead. So, the great quote, Jake. I knew exactly what quote you were going to bring out when you said the Dark Knight. But yeah, that's true. I mean, people now. I mean, they're only. I mean, we talk about when Jake was talking about mental illness. I forgot the number, but there's roughly what 50% of the U.S. population is on some type of medication for mental health problems. That's again, that's all the way to the low end of um, you know I'll say low. I'm not trying to diminish anyone's mental problems, but from all ends of the scale. So people take mild antidepressants, but I mean, they're fully functional to those who are, schizophrenic. So 50% of the US population will not have access to their medicine um, when this goes down. So, and then the other in it, and them and everyone else is not going to have access to their luxuries and amenities. So, I think the saying goes, America's only 3 meals away from anarchy. I think it's less than that. I think it's like a snack and a half. But it doesn't. It's not going to take much. So, you see someone walking down the street. Oh, you pull out your gun and start shooting them. Like, no, that's not what we're saying. But who they are will be revealed in very short order. So, um, with that, if someone else has any more questions, comments, um, things they want to bring out about the movie. But yeah, no. I wanted to say this about as someone as anyone wants to raise their hand. Ben, when you brought up the lady cooking um, about in the last week's movie about leftovers, um, yeah, I didn't catch that. I mean, I'm sorry. Like I guess I've been around white folks way too long growing up because cooking with no seasoning and cooking like that was normal. I mean, I've seen that too many times. So that wasn't a red flag for me. I missed that. But I mean, yeah, now that you said that, you would have left, this seeing that, disgusting food. I'd be like, oh, okay, because I totally like when she was cooking, it just flew over my head because I've seen that so many times. And yeah, but with that one, yeah, there was a few more red flags. I definitely eat in any way, especially you being that comfort to bring people in your home. But nah, yeah, that white people not using seasoning and not knowing how to cook, that's pretty common. Um, yeah. So and the don't trust white women. I guess I mean, I guess hey, they sayest. So I definitely wouldn't trust them. But does anyone else has anything else you want to bring out? Yeah, I couldn't get the other one done. My schedule is pretty crazy. It's starting to get a little bit smoother. So we have next week. I'm going to cover The Walking Dead, The Passage. It's a short film. It's based in the Walking Dead universe. It's not connected to any of the series. It's its own standalone short film. I'm going to cover that one next week. It says parts 1 through 16, but you'll see it's only like 13 minutes long. That's all 16 parts. So they do like mini movies, or like they call them like webisodes, which each episode is like a minute and a half long or less than a minute long. So when you saw all parts, it says parts 1 through 16. That's everything. That's the entire. There's there's nothing else at the end of that 13 minutes. So um, I'm going to do that one next week, and I'm going to uh, post another one up before after this one. So if there's any other questions, comments, or concerns, you can raise your hand. If not, Brother Ben, you can close us out. Appreciate y'all for coming. Thanks a lot. Hopefully it was beneficial.
Con. I would say this. These are very. I'll pose this to anyone that's looking to go through um these movies if you haven't already, and yourself mark down the things that you learned over the time in the Jacob's Trouble class, and see what these people have done wrong in the movies, and come up and pose these questions. I mean, these are or things that they have done right. um it's a good test for yourself to see where you are at right now. um because a lot of these are, you know um the situations that the brother is showing you that you could have, that will occur. So I would say, I know a lot of people is pressed for time with their schedule. The brother Lee who has made this convenient where we can go, and these are not long movies. I think the longest one being The Crazies, which wasn't that long of a movie itself. But yeah, I would go through these and just see, what do you think is right, and what was done right, and what do you think was done wrong, and it'll give you like a test, as to say where you are in your understanding and preparedness. Um, so yeah, but this very, it was good. I thought it was a good clip. The next one that's up there, Leo had it up there already. I'm already, I'm already caught up on that. So yeah, and you can go like catch up on these at the Yaquab's Trouble website, as well as the YouTube. They'll be on a playlist on the YouTube. Yeah, so make sure that you are following. If you're not, follow Brother Leo, myself, and Brother Mike. Make sure you're a member of That Kingdom Come, so you can, uh, you know, be alerted for when these rooms are open. I know we had a lot of stuff going on today, but we thank everybody for coming out. Also, if you're not in a telechat, make sure that you contact myself or Brother Leo or Brother Mike to get in the telechat, so you can get the information uh, that we place back there. A lot of information comes out, and we post it to the back chat, as well as um, anything that ideas for future Jacob's Trouble classes. We got a lot coming down the road. So you want to stay tapped in, so what's coming up. A lot of brothers posed a lot of good ideas. One about, I think it was about what should we happen if the stock market crash. We know that a lot of our people is in the cryptocurrency, and should that happened, they would like to have some guidance on what they should probably do. So that is one that's Leo said it down the line he may go into. Um, Also, I think it was a poll that we put up in the chat regarding Jacob's Trouble classes regarding I think it was stock and restocking, stuff like that, how to restock the stuff that you are having saved up, just food and anything like that, and switching it out. That was the overwhelming choice between the three classes that we had up there, which was I believe it was natural home birth, and the other one was firearms safety, and I believe it was concealed carry permit preparation. So everyone chose the stock and restock Jacob's Trouble class, which is interesting. So may deal with that down the line as well. Again, um, so with that being said, of course, we want to give all thanks to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. And we'll be back tomorrow morning with the mid morning brew. Uh, Also, don't forget tomorrow at 8 p.m. Sister Zebulon and Halima, they got the Sister Trauma class that'll be coming up. So get in contact with them for sisters only. That's going to be really good for our sisters. Also, we have the Knights of the Round Table. We'll be dealing with mental health in the quote unquote black community. Um, that's going to be interesting discussion because we got a lot of our people. For anybody that was in the room, uh, the God First Gang room, you can see that we have a lot of mental illness in our with our people, just dealing with the scriptures and trying to save other nations. So it's a lot of mental illness going around. So we want to know how to deal with that mental illness. You know, uh, even whether it's with the scriptures or with that, not with the scriptures. We want to be able to deal with the mental illness. Yeah. So that's with that being said, we pray that y'all have a beautiful rest of your evening. Be safe. Be vigilant. And with that, we'll say shalom.
Shalom. God bless.
Shalom.